Well, sometimes even the best leaders get it wrong. Um, the what's called the Overland Campaign, which stretches throughout the month of May and into June of 1864, where Grant, an overall command, and General George Gordon Meade, who has day-to-day operations of the Union Army, clashed with Robert E. Lee. And to get at Lee, they had to cross a river called the Rapidan. They cross the Rapidan in early May, and they need to head south or southeast as quickly as they can. Um, there's a place called the Wilderness. Sandy soil, grows, small trees, a lot of them though, great for growing bushes, lots of dry leaves. There's only one really good road through the wilderness, and Grant's going to take it. Um, his desire is to get through the wilderness quickly and force Lee out in the open. Grant's got about 35,000 more troops than Lee has, maybe even 40,000 more troops than Lee has. If he can get Lee in the open, even if he doesn't have a good battle, he's going to defeat Lee and may probably push him back into Richmond. Lee's army was spread out all over the place. And they spread out so the horses could forage. The Southern economy and the Southern rail system simply couldn't provide enough food for the horses. So Lee's army is scattered around so that the horses can feed. So any, I think, sensible general would do what Grant did, at least at the beginning. Grant heads down southeast through the wilderness. Most of his army gets through quickly. And just as the back end of his army comes through, one of General Lee's corps commanders, a fellow by the name of Ewell, slams into it. And this is where Grant makes a terrible mistake. They could have done what's called a fighting retreat and made it the rest of the way through the wilderness. Instead, Grant, who has said that Lee's army is the goal, decides to turn around and fight in the wilderness. Grant and his people know nothing about the terrain there. Lee and his people do. I mean, it's in the South. It's in Virginia, so they know what the terrain is. And what evolves is this bizarre, vicious fight where nobody can see anything. On the first day, Grant's fairly successful. His army is together in one piece. And on the right-hand side of Lee's line, led by A.P. Hill, shatters it. Second day, Grant, knowing that Lee's in trouble on the right, lines up about 10,000 troops under his best general, Hancock, and sends them crashing into Lee's right. Lee's right just, turns into foam. But you remember I said Lee's army was all spread out. Up to this point, Grant has been only fighting 2/3 of Lee's army. As that wave of Union soldiers comes forward closer and closer to really shattering the Southern Army completely, James Longstreet, Lee's second in command, is approaching with the best troop soldiers in the Confederate Army, and the North doesn't know they're there. Now they're fighting blind. They just can't see what they're doing. Nobody saw Longstreet coming. And the next thing Grant knew, his soldiers were shattered and fleeing. And Grant might have been in a very severe problem, might have had a very severe problem at that point, except for the fact that Longstreet takes a bullet through the shoulder and through the neck. Should have killed him. Incredible that it didn't. But Longstreet's out, the command is broken. In the middle of an attack, Lee has to be summoned to conduct the attack himself. Several hours are lost. It gets all confused. And Lee's chance is lost. Battle goes on. Lee at some point rides over to his left to where Ewell attacked in the first place, sees that Grant has left his flank unguarded, and Confederates slam into the other side of Grant. Basically, Grant has had both his right flank and his left flank crushed. This is a terrible beating. But that's not what makes the wilderness the worst battle of the Civil War. Those bushes, those trees, leaves from years past, black powder, cotton wadding, sparks flying everywhere. Suddenly they're fighting a brutal battle in the middle of a raging forest fire. And I gotta tell you something. You take a bullet to the hip here. You take a bullet that, maybe not bad enough to even to have your leg taken off, but just simply knocks you flat, and you get run over by a forest fire, you're just as dead as if you took a bullet to the head. Now, there's all kinds of figures about how many people burned to death in this thing, but a lot did. I don't trust the figures at all, but a lot. It was just horrifying. So bullets are flying, and sparks are flying, and embers are flying. Grant's had both of his flanks turned, crushed, basically. It's just a terrible battle for Grant. And the end result is that, Grant, under normal circumstances, Grant probably would have retreated back across the Rapidan. On the last day, on May 7th of the battle, on the last day of the battle, with just everything going completely wrong, Grant retreats to his tent, breaks down, sobs, apparently hysterically, for a period of time. Like onlookers would have said that he had a breakdown if we were using modern lingo. But he comes unglued, severely unglued. He's lost maybe 7,000 more troops than Lee has lost. It's a staggering loss. And then Grant recovers, and he does the two things that he should have done in the first place. The first is he decides to have a battle some other place. And the second thing is he gets his army through the wilderness as fast as he can, heading for a place called Spotsylvania. It's a crossroads. And if he can get to Spotsylvania, remember, he's got many more troops than Lee has. If he can get to Spotsylvania and turn the corner, Lee is going to be forced to fight him in the open or retreat all the way back to Richmond. So Grant makes the right decisions. He just made them 2 days too late. And many, many, many soldiers lose their lives, some in absolutely horrid fashion, because Grant just has a terrible battle. And he underestimated Bobby Lee, and he didn't do proper reconnaissance. It's hard to find anything good in this battle for Grant. He should never have turned his army around to go back into those woods and fight. And the fact that he did, Lee had Gettysburg, Grant has the wilderness. Good generals have bad days sometimes. Anyway, everybody take care out there. Stay safe, and above all, stay healthy. Bye-bye.